Has the corona pandemic saved teaching? We're going to have to stick with me for this one, but I want you to cast your mind back to March when the UK was put in lockdown, and overnight teachers were told that the majority of their pupils were going to continue their learning at home. And suddenly we were put into this position where we had to get our head around how we can support that learning at home. Now, I know this was easier for some schools than others. I know quite a few schools that I've worked with in the past who have implemented ideas from my training, had these systems in place, found that transition to online learning fairly straightforward, fairly easy to do. But then I know there were certain schools that struggled with it. For a number of years they hadn't embraced technology in a way that they could do, and were very sort of traditional about the way in which learning was evidenced and that sort of thing. But they still stepped up to the challenge and learned all these new tools, and were able to support their children through home learning, which was just incredible, amazing, and teachers have just been unbelievable through this. Now you've got to ask yourself the question, how are we able to embrace all this technology so quickly? How are we able to get our head around all these new apps and new tools? And obviously we had no other choice. It was either that or we weren't able to support our pupils with their home learning. But also if you think about it, we actually stopped doing a lot of other stuff that we would normally do. Now when I say stuff, I'm talking about faff here. I'm talking about the things that would waste so much of our time as teachers, would consume us, and would be the main reason why we didn't have the time to embrace this technology, get our head around it, to utilise it effectively. Now during this time there have been so many concerns about all different elements of education, but there are some opportunities. Now a huge worry of mine is that when we do eventually get back to normal, whenever that might be, is that we end up going back and sort of taking huge steps back, and all the things we were doing before slowly but surely start creeping in again. And that would be a huge mistake to make, because teachers over these past few months have worked incredibly hard and have learned so much about these new innovative tools. They've just been innovating, they've been creative, they've been presenting, they've been doing all these amazing things through technology, and I think it would be a huge shame if we weren't to then build on that when we do get back to normal. Now I'm very much generalising here, I'm just going off my own experience and also speaking to teachers that I know. If you are a school who has embraced technology during this time to support home learning through some sort of platform like Seesaw, like Google Classroom, Class Dojo, Microsoft Teams, whatever it might be, Shobi, that sort of thing. Here are a few things we can now build on through those tools that will not only make learning accessible, give children the opportunity to be more creative with their knowledge and understanding, but will also help teachers get a better work-life balance. So firstly, when we are back in September, we have got to move beyond the exercise book being the be-all and end-all. We have to utilise these tools that we've been using over the past few months to evidence learning alongside those books. Now this can not only help children build a better understanding of digital literacy, but it makes that learning also accessible, so children are able to express and demonstrate their knowledge and understanding in different ways, better suited to their needs. And it also can save teachers a lot of time, and also save the school a lot of money as far as printing, photocopying and that sort of thing. Another huge positive for me is that through the use of this technology we've been able to make better connections with parents. We've been able to inform them, we've been able to support them so much better than what we were doing before, where it might just be generic report at the end of a term or a 5-minute meeting at parents' evening. I know as a parent on the receiving end, having the updates from the teacher, seeing what the children have been up to when they were in school and that sort of thing has just made me so much more aware of the learning that's been happening. It means that I can support that learning so much more effectively at home, and I think this is something that we need to continue and we need to build on. The better homeschool links we can make, it's only going to have a huge positive impact on children's outcomes. The next one is to just stop all the faff. Think back to the things we stopped doing when lockdown happened, the things that would usually take so much time, so much effort, and actually didn't mean anything. They didn't actually have any impact on teaching and learning, and just stopped doing it. So whatever that might be, because I know schools are different with this, but really work as a team to consider the effectiveness of what you are doing as a staff. So if it's not having a huge impact on teaching and learning, is it worth doing? Another one is looking at wellbeing. Now, wellbeing has been the hot word in education for a while now, hasn't it? And every school will have a wellbeing coordinator doing wellbeing staff meetings and initiatives after initiatives after initiatives, which didn't actually help most teachers with their wellbeing. But what I've seen during this pandemic is that the best way in which you can help a teacher's wellbeing is just to trust them to do the job that they're very capable of doing. Now, what I've seen is that so many leadership teams have done exactly that. They've just trusted the teachers to support home learning, to look after the vulnerable and key worker children, and not then pressure them with all this other, going back to it, faff. And so if we can continue with that, we won't need all these initiatives, because ultimately the two most precious things to a teacher are time and trust. Now, if we can take from this pandemic that there are certain things we were doing before that don't have impact on learning, so let's stop doing them, and then we can just trust teachers to do the job that they're very capable of doing, I reckon wellbeing will improve significantly for the majority of teachers. Another thing that we need to remove is this high stakes accountability that has plagued education over the past few years, especially primary education. I'm talking here about the SATs. Now, do I think any year 6 child who has left primary and didn't sit the SATs, do I think by not sitting the SATs that's going to have any negative impact on their education at all? No. And if we are wanting to truly embrace this broad and balanced curriculum approach, I really struggle to see how that is possible when we still have these high stakes accountability tests. Now, we've already seen that the baseline assessments in EYFS are going to be knocked back a year, as are the phonics. I think that should happen with all, SATs as well. I don't think it's going to have any real positive impact on children's learning this year. So much of the recovery curriculum's being bounded here, there and everywhere. Well, if we really want to get children to catch up, I just don't think SATs are the way to do it. And another one that I'll chuck in there, can we please use this pandemic to finally accept that written marking is just a waste of time. Now, I've been banging on about this for I don't know how long, but most schools had to stop it. You had to stop it. It wasn't safe to do, hygienic, whatever it might be. Was any teacher really gutted? Was any teacher worrying that this was now going to have a negative impact on teaching and learning? No, most teachers were buzzing because they could do the thing that they know worked, which was just a bit of oral feedback at that point of learning. Or use some of the ideas that I've shared about using technology to give more effective oral feedback. So if there's one thing we can take from this whole pandemic, can it be that we finally stick the marking policy in the bin, have a feedback policy, use it to trust your teachers to do the job that they're very capable of doing, and yeah, we might finally get somewhere with it. So has the corona pandemic saved teaching? Well, only time will tell, but ultimately it just comes down to us as teachers and us as schools. Are we going to be able to build on all this incredible learning and this innovation and this creativity that teachers have embraced over the past few months, or are we going to go back to what we were doing before, which will again lead us to more issues around workload and well-being? I'd love to know your thoughts, guys. Please let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching.